Hola, Taboo Breakers. Bienvenidos a Taboo Talk Latina Edition. Yo soy Cynthia.
And I'm Jeanette, and here at Taboo Talks, we keep it real, raw, and rooted in our cultura. This is the space where we shed the silence, speak on the truth our abuelas were told to hide, and celebrate the stories that make us powerful mujeres.
We break cycles, honor our voices, and amplify the mujeres changing the game. Lo que nadie quiere decir, we say it here with heart, laughter, and healing.
Today's guest is not only shifting narratives, she's reclaiming space and setting a new standard in media for what it means to tell stories with heart and intention.
We're honored to welcome Gabriela Ulloa, the creator and voice behind Irregardless, a powerful series on the cultural change makers of today. She is published in the New York Times, New York Magazine, Remezcla, Redefining 29, just to name a few. Her storytelling doesn't just report on culture, it reclaims it. She's interviewed icons like Becky G and Coleman Domingo.
She's now in LA, continued her mission to amplify voices, lead with heart, and tell her story on her own terms. Gabriela, welcome to Taboo Talks Latina Edition. We're so excited to have you here with us.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Can I just say, being in a space where you guys know how to say my last name, it's thrilling. Let me just tell you right now.
Glad I nailed it.
You did. You did. It always makes me so happy. I'm like, thank God. They understand.
Means a lot to us. Thank you. And before we jump into the conversation, we want to hear from you, right? For those who may not know the full story, who is Gabriela behind the bylines, the interviews, the red carpet? What called you to storytelling and how did that journey start?
I mean, I'm a long-winded girl, so I apologize in advance. But I think honestly, it all started when I was a kid because I'm a very nostalgic person. I'm a very sentimental person. I feel like I'm a little dramatic. And I always found release and some sort of healing, whether or not I knew like the verbiage around it when it came to writing. And so when I was young, if I was ever experiencing like just like an overload of emotions, the only way I could get it out was through writing. And I would write these like super dramatic, like long letters that I would like never send to the person or, whatever. And I'm sure they're like in a box somewhere in my mother's house and like, God forbid someone finds them. But I would just like let it all out that way. And then when I realized that you could, make a living off writing and that could be a career that you could do, I was like everything kind of clicked inside of my brain. And so I, from a very young age, had my heart set on wanting to work at a magazine. I remember watching The Devil Wears Prada and being like, that's gonna be my life. Like that is what I want. And I don't know. That's where I set my sights and focused on it. And all throughout college, I took internships every single summer in New York and worked in kind of all of the different areas of either editorial or fashion. And I was trying to kind of figure out like, where does my storytelling land? I always and still am like very obsessed with intersections of stuff. So at the time when I was in college, I was really obsessed with fashion and how it intersects with politics or how it intersects with like what's going on in culture and just trying to find those intersections. But it was never anything that I don't know, like I felt like I was like forcing it almost because I felt the need to attach merit to what I wanted to do. Cause I always kind of had this thing in my head that, working at a magazine was frivolous or, it wasn't smart enough or it wasn't like impressive enough or whatever. So I was always trying to like force the like, how can we make this seem like the most like impressive, smart, like, type of career? Once I got, fast forward, I moved to New York after college. I took a bunch of freelance work while I was, applying for a bunch of jobs. And I ended up landing a role as the assistant to the editor in chief at Architectural Digest. And breaking into Condé Nast, which is the company that owns Architectural Digest, that was like my dream, my goal. I was like, I don't care what magazine I'm at, just like I need to land here. And getting that job was, I mean, the best thing that's ever happened. But what was so great about it was that, my boss at the time, who's still a great, person and mentor in my life, she really was like, you can write, like, as long as, you're still, getting your work done for me, like, start gaining your byline, like, you can get things published in the magazine here. Like, she allowed me kind of that freedom. And it sort of pushed me to explore writing about things that I wasn't used to writing about. And I would always find myself in these pitch meetings being like, I love design. I think I love pretty things. I'm a Taurus. Like I like stuff about a house. But for some reason, every time I was assigned something or I was pitching a story, I always found myself coming back to the person inside of the house. And I was always so focused on like, who is this human? Like, why did they pick that paint color? Why did they pick that sofa? Like, what about the way that they were raised made them so hyper focused about like needing to have this certain thing in their house? And so little by little, I started like putting the dots together and I was like, oh, like you just love people. Like you love, that's your thing. Like that's the intersection within every type of storytelling that you do is the human. So now, fast forward years and now I'm here in LA, that's still what drives me, especially with my interviews, whether it's Irregardless or interviews that I do for different magazines. I'm curious about whoever the human is behind the headline. Like you guys said, behind the red carpet, behind the interview. Like I want us to meet each other on that human to human level because my goal with honestly like anything I produce is for hopefully the person on the other end to not only see themselves reflected, but even if they don't see themselves reflected, have that sort of like expand their universe a little bit more and also expand their understanding of what's possible for them in their own lives. Like having that expander, you know?
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing. Yeah.
I love it because I feel like, and it's true, when you are writing about people or talking about a subject, at the end of the day, it's like digging deeper into like their beliefs, where they come from. And very few people understand that. So I applaud you for that, to really
Thank
understand.
you.
Like understand the person and not yes the message around it, but like really digging deep. It takes a lot to realize that. That's beautiful.
I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
and by the way, I would love to read those letters.
Oh my God. It's
I
like we're like burn
I'm
them.
like, "Someone please pass it along because I would love to read those letters." And I just wanna know, like, how did you as a child know to take your emotions and write it down on paper? Was that just something that you automatically did or your parents taught you? Because as a young child to know to do that, that's very impressive.
Thanks. Honestly, I'm trying to remember. I mean, I was definitely like a Dear Diary kid. Like I recently found one of my old diaries because when during the pandemic, I was living in New York when everything happened, and my mom was like, "You are flying to Miami today. Get your ass over here." And so I ended up staying in Miami for 9 months in my childhood room, and I was going through all of my stuff, and I found all of my old diaries. And I love how I say recently. This was 5 years ago. I can't believe it was that long ago.
I
Anyway,
know.
I digress. And those diaries were just so funny. And it's like me complaining about my older sister and just so drama and whatever. But I honestly think it was a class in middle school. And I just remember having this teacher who he was kind of the first one that made me like really excited about writing. And I don't know if it was like the assignments that we were given or what it was, but I just remember being actually excited about something in school and feeling like emotional about it. And I think that's probably honestly what kind of kickstarted it. And then later on in high school, so this was my senior year of high school. So at this point, I'd already been writing those letters and the drama and the whatever. But I took a class. It was this English class where it was like a pen pal situation with a women's prison in
Yeah,
Florida,
I remember.
but it wasn't like traditional pen pal because like that wasn't obviously appropriate. Like if you're in high school, whatever. So basically, what it was is these women were opting in to take a class in the prison that they were at. And we were all reading the same books. And then we'd be given the same prompt, and we had to respond to that prompt, like in an essay. And then we would trade those essays with our pen pal. And we were only allowed to talk about like the contents of like what was there. And we would be giving each other feedback on our work. But, talking about the human, regardless if we were answering a prompt that, in our brains had nothing to do with us or the book had nothing to do with us, our stories would bleed on into those pages. And you were able to connect with people who, look, I was at a private school in Miami, connecting with like our lives could not have been more opposite. And we were able to find connection and meaning and like friendship almost through each other's words. And that class, and frankly, that teacher, Dr. Stone, shout out, really did change my life. And also because, he was not that like we need validation, but I think when we're young, especially when we're young girls, like you want to hear some sort of validation. I remember him telling me, being like one of the probably the first person to tell me like you're a really good writer. You should keep this up. And I remember going off to college after his class, and I came back to my high school to visit, and I went to go see him, and he was like, "Are you writing? Like, are you still writing a lot?" And I was like, I'm not. Like, I'm really not. And he was like, why? Like, why? Like, why are you not? I was like, unless it's like for school, I'm really not writing a ton. And when he asked me why, I remember like I sat back in the chair and I was like, it's because I'm happy. And he was like, interesting. You should keep writing even when you're happy. And that's when it kind of clicked in my brain for the first time that I was using it as therapy and I was using it as a way to sort through emotions that I like didn't know what to do with.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. It takes one teacher,
Yeah.
right?
It's
Kind
always
of.
that one teacher.
Wow, that's so beautiful. And I feel like that was like a thing back then, right? Like the diary. Like that doesn't exist anymore, right? Like, does anyone write in diaries anymore? Like, I have
We
teens.
call it journaling now.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not the same because it's more about manifesting and your
Sure.
feelings and right. But I feel like going back to like our diary of like really like there was now that you say that, like I remember recalling on one that my mom found this was many years ago, and I was talking about the boy that didn't acknowledge me but when I passed by the locker, or like how it hurt when my mom did a certain action to me, right? And like little things that we reflect on that now is like wow. So like I don't feel like kids nowadays understand that. They don't have that.
Yeah. I hope they do. I hope they do in one way. I gotta ask, I have a niece and a nephew who she's 19 and he's about to turn 16 or just turned 16. So I gotta ask them, like, what do you guys do?
Now
I
it's
know.
weird, right? Influencers and scrolling, and it's like you
Yeah.
guys are missing out.
I'm gonna ask my kids after this, like, what do you do?
Oh, right.
Seriously.
All right, so let's start with Irregardless. You didn't just create a platform like we all know, you created a movement. What was the moment that kind of sparked that vision for you? And why was it so important for you to create your own space?
Well, thank you. That's a really nice way of phrasing that. I mean, look, irregardless has always been a dream of mine, regardless if I knew, regardless if I knew actually like what it was going to look like. I think, when I was at Condé Nast and at Architectural Digest, one of the things that I started to realize was I really wanted to be on camera and I wanted to do that storytelling on camera. And I wanted to have the like Oprah-esque career. But again, I was grappling with the like, is that frivolous? Which is so funny because when you look at a woman like Oprah, the last word you think is frivolous, like ever. But when I applied it to myself, I was like, does that make me vain that I want to be on camera and I want, that attention or, whatever. Obviously, I feel like growing up in Miami, like, excuse my language, but it's like the words, like, I just have the words like attention whore, like screaming in my brain,
Totally get you. What you mean?
you know. And so anyway, fast forward, my boss at Architectural Digest was one of the people to tell me like you need to be on camera. And she would give me opportunities to be on camera, which is huge because a lot of people's bosses like don't do that. And so anyway, when I came out to LA and I was a freelancer out here, I always had this idea in the back of my brain, but I was too scared to do it on my own and trust my ability and my voice to stand on itself, to like rely on me as an interviewer and my curiosity and my voice and presence like leading this thing. So I think it was like last year because I launched it regardless in February of this year. And it was last year. I remember like around New Year's, I woke up and I was like 2024, January 2024. And I was like, what the fuck have I been doing? Like, I feel like I've spent the last year of my life journaling, journaling about shit, but not actually taking action on any of it. Like, I haven't lived. I felt like I've spent all of 2023 just like writing about what I wanted to do and writing about my feelings, but not actually like taking that step and taking that leap. And so I made that promise to myself in January 2024, I was like, you are going to take steps to actually make this shit happen. And Irregardless was like the goal. And it started off as like 35 different ideas before I landed on, okay, this is where we're going to start and then we can grow and expand. But as I mentioned earlier, I think that, the driving motivator for me was really, I want people to listen to these conversations and like I said, feel like their perception of their reality is expanded by an inch. I feel like I grew up with the privilege of getting to see a lot of people around me find success and live out what they wanted to live out and never really like hearing you can't do that. I also just think Miami is such an anomaly because we are around so many Latinos that like I didn't, it's such a privilege to grow up being told like nothing other than like it's great that you're Latino. You know what I mean? But when I was creating it regardless, like that was really in my head a lot where I was like, this is such a privilege that I got to not feel like I couldn't do something growing up. And I want to help bring in the voices to help somebody who might feel that way, like break through that barrier a bit more. And again, like I'm just obsessed with people. I'm obsessed with figuring out how they got to where they are, what makes them tick, what makes them happy. And I felt like we were kind of in this space where there were a lot of shows that were blowing up that were kind of on like either end of the spectrum. It was like they're either super deep and like thought provoking and like I say this like very with no judgment, but like sometimes like a little bit emotionally exhausting. And then there was like the other side of it that was like, we're only going to shoot the shit and we're just going to do that. It's going to be like a good time and it's entertaining. And I think we need both. Like we need either end of the spectrum, I think is important for us. And so I was like, can I create a show that meets those two things in the middle where we are shooting the shit, where we're having a good time, we're entertained, we're laughing, you know, all of that sort of stuff, but also like, let's go there and I can meet you there and we can have these tough and fun conversations that, you know, questions that celebrities might not get asked all the time about like, you know, who they are as people. Can we do both? And so that was kind of like the couple of the driving factors that were like, okay, I want to make this thing happen.
I love it. And you know, now that you said that, it's truly amazing what you have created. Because
Thank
I
you.
come from the entertainment industry, and you're right. I've seen people get interviewed and celebrities, and you know, regardless of what they do, they look up to them because of the name they have for themselves. But nobody really digs deep to those beliefs, what they aspire to be, right? Like how happy they really are. Like, how are you really, right? And I think it's so important because it reminds them that they're human, but it also reminds us as the fans and the viewers that we're not alone, right? Because we're easy to like judge based on where they stand or because they have money or they came from a rich family or just because, you know, they have a good voice, maybe they made it. And then when you hear like Becky G or you hear other artists say, oh no, I come from a poor family or this is my roots, right? Or like I had to do this and that. And it kind of gives you a hope of like, wow, I'm
Yeah.
not alone in this. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And look, like I always want to share a variety of stories and a variety of voices because like I said, like, you know, yeah, a lot of it is seeing yourself reflected in somebody else's experience, but I think, you know, right now, especially we're living in a time where it's like our phones, for example, it's just like an echo chamber of our own thoughts over and over and over again and like confirmation bias over and over and over again. And so if you can find empathy in somebody else's story that might be super, super different to your own, I think that is what connects us the most as humans. And especially, I think the way that, you know, Latinos are portrayed in media, like it's exhausting. And I think we deserve the opportunity to celebrate Latino excellence and Latino joy and pride and all of the beautiful aspects of our community alongside also the real reality of so many Latinos living within the US. You know, like having that duality and being able to talk about that, I think is really important.
You're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
You know,
Thank
and
you.
in a world that often tells Latinas, right? Because I know we are such on that subject because we understand that's our roots on how to show up or not to show up. How did building this space became your form of resistance? Like, how do you stay grounded in that power, especially in a white dominated industry?
I mean, listen, I think always the best form of resistance is not shrinking yourself and is just showing up and taking up space. Like, that's it. I think I had this like complejo in my brain about being young and like a woman and, you know, like having that in my head of like, oh, they're not gonna take you seriously or, you know, because you know, put makeup on and like to present yourself well, like they're just gonna think you're like, again, frivolous. Like I had this narrative in my head over and over and over again. And I really, I mean, I got myself back into therapy and I really had to work through that before I launched Irregardless because one of the major blocks that was holding, like the only block, frankly, was just me trusting myself and trusting my own voice and trusting my ability to get the thing done. And, you know, now it's interesting in this space where I'm like trying to scale Irregardless and I'm taking meetings with, you know, potential partners and what that could look like for the show. And I've been, you know, deep in like reading books about how to negotiate and how to take up space. And I think that's also a big part of it, right? Is like a lot of times we're not taught these things and we're not taught as, you know, young Latinas how to understand money or how to take up space or how to negotiate or, you know, all of these different things. And so I think we really need to take it upon ourselves to always be forever students. And there are so many books out there there are so many, like, I'm obsessed with Masterclass. Like, you can share a membership with a friend. Like, it doesn't need to be this like super expensive thing to constantly be educating yourself, but just always making sure that like you understand how to navigate a room that you're walking into. And like you said, especially when it's like a bunch of like old white men in a room, I think it's really powerful to understand how to speak their language, because unfortunately, like, that's the way it's going to be, and that's how things are moving, at least right now. And in order to create that change, we need to get into that fucking room and break the doors down and hold our
Yeah.
hand out and bring everyone else in there, but we got to get in that room. And
Yes.
so I think it's really powerful to understand how to talk their talk and like throw that shit back in their face and be like, you know what, I'm actually not going to be quiet. I actually do know what I'm talking about, and I am going to take up space, and I am going to surround myself with other people who know how to take up space, and we'll show you that we know how to get this thing done.
It's the
That's your
truth. It's the
mantra.
truth.
I love it. Oh, yeah. And they always say, what is it? Like we are our worst enemies, right? Because we always get in our own heads. And from an outsider, it's like we would have never thought those thoughts about you. Like you're the only one thinking about that, right? But nobody else is thinking that. So, I love that phrase that people say, like we're our own worst enemies.
Yeah, we see
Yeah.
nothing
It's like
less
so
than you are.
true.
Like, honestly, we're like, look at her. Like, you're killing it. You're doing amazing. That's why we told you we're so honored to have you on, because it is a big deal what you're doing, and
Thank
your
you.
story matter and your voice, because you provide platform and you write stories of everyone else. You deserve your spotlight too. We have to put
Thank
our
you.
hands on the back for that. So yes, I love that. We have to own it, and we have to, break those barriers that are standing in our way.
And there's something so revolutionary about telling your own story at your own terms. What do you think media still gets wrong when it comes to us, like Latinas, and how are you changing that?
Mm, that's a really good question. I mean, so many things. So
It's
many
like,
things.
where do we start?
So many things. I think, there's obviously so many tropes of like the way that I think media portrays. It's like if we're talking specifically about Latinas, right? It's like the angry Latina, the crazy girlfriend, all this other stuff. Which, like, listen, bitch, don't cross me. Like, let's. But also, there's so much more to us. And I think it's like this diminishing, especially like in Hollywood. It's like it's always like the best friend, or like, the like crazy girl that like can't get it under control, or she's the funny one, or this or that. But I think being able to have, our multitudes shown of, being really smart, being really driven, doing all the amazing things that we do, and also at the same time being fun, being hilarious, being down to go shake your ass at like a random perreo on a Sunday. Like, all of that stuff is part, I think, of what makes us so exciting and special, and something that I think like a lot of us, or at least like I know that I've like gone back and forth in that duality, being like, how can all of these things exist at once? But I think just being able to showcase that is super, super important to me. Like, I remember, I think it was like in 2022, I wrote an article for Birdie, which is one of the publications that I write for. Sorry, mom, because like she hates when I tell the story, because she had like a fucking conniption when this article came out. And I had written an article about getting my nipple pierced, and how it, like, really helped me like reclaim ownership over my own body. And I think, you know, a lot of women in general, but like specifically Latinas, I unfortunately relate to this, dating guys when we're young, or dating like the young Cuban guys in Miami that are like raised Catholic, and they want the like niña fina who like is a virgin and wears her pearls, and there is nothing wrong with that, but that was just never me. And so dating somebody like that for such like formative years of my life really was in direct conflict with like who I am as a person. And like there was like a lot of like unpacking I had to do after that relationship. And I remember like getting my nipple pierced, for example, was like this like liberating thing for me, where I was like, this is my fucking body. I can do whatever I want. Like, this was also like around the time where like, Roe v. Wade was like starting to get overturned. And like, please do not conflate this with me being like, this is how I'm fighting injustice in politics and piercing my nipple. Like, I understand, but I'm just saying it was like around all of that time. And I remember I wrote this article, and my mom called me and she was like, "Hi, Gabriela, why do you have to put everything on the internet? Like, why do you have to talk about this on the internet?" And I was like, exactly for the reason that you're calling me. I was like, because there's probably one other bitch in the United States of America that feels the same way that I do, that is like, you know what? I am working this corporate ass America job and nobody here knows that I have my nipple pierced, but I know that I have my nipple pierced. And whoever I'm going home to knows that. And like, that is so fun and exciting. And like having, I don't know, just being able to show the duality of like everything that we have within us, I just think is like fun and exciting and like something that I want to participate in. I don't know if that's like the, best answer in the world because I feel like that's like reductive to us as Latinas to be like, and I'm going to talk about piercings and like that's going to change America. But I think it was just like I don't know, it was like an exciting thing
Yes.
for me to be able to
It
write
is
about.
because it makes us vulnerable. It makes us
Yeah.
real. You know what I mean? Like how many girls are out there probably dealing with it. And Cynthia always goes by like in corporate America, she can share calladita me veo más bonita, right? Because in
Mhm.
the corporate world, it's like, okay, don't talk,
Yeah.
don't say too much. And when she shares this, it reminds us, especially those in corporate that no, it's not okay. Like you can't shrink yourself because you don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable. Or like when you got your mom's call, you're like, this is the reason why I do it. You're not doing it for her. You're doing it for the women out there that are in your same position to remind them, like, show up. You have a voice. Don't
And
shrink.
like you get to make your own decisions. Like I think that's a
Yeah.
really big part of us as Latinas is like the way that we're raised. There's so much machismo within all of it. Not just with the older generations, but like with the boys we grow up around. Like I keep coming back to Miami, but like it's fucking wild. And if you're able to chip away at that and challenge like your own internalized machismo, that is like really, really valuable.
It is. Oh my gosh, no, I applaud you for that. It's amazing. Like I love everything
Thanks.
you.
Now, I want to go back a little. Was your mom mad at what you wrote or that you got the piercing?
I mean, all of the above. Like all of the above. I didn't tell her about the piercing when I did it. I told her right before the article came out. I said, FYI, two things you're not gonna like. One, number two. So no, she wasn't thrilled about either. But you know what? I gotta give her credit. She definitely lets me do me, and she is very supportive, and finds it at the end of the day, she finds it funny. So like vibes.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's so like in our Hispanic, right? Like getting tattoos, getting
Yeah.
piercing,
Yeah.
cutting our hair. Sometimes if I would cut my hair, she's like, hey, pero ¿por qué tú te haces eso? Like it's just like the way that they grew up and the way that they see us, right? They hope that we can stay like that forever or like follow their path. So we're here to break it. I mean, and to do what's best for us. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, tattoo number one was definitely an issue, and then like once we got to like number 12, she like got over it.
I'm sure. Same thing with my sister. She has a bunch and she's like, you're going to get over it eventually. My mom is like, ya, lo que tú quieras, no me importa.
Yeah. She was like, "You're mutilating your body." I was like, "Okay, let's let's take it down a notch."
The worst part is when they're correct, because it happened to me. I must admit, my tattoo number one, I'm gonna admit it, was my ex-husband's name on my finger. And my mom was devastated. And I was like, Mom, it's okay. Like, don't worry. I got a divorce. I ended up lasering it. And my mom, the first thing she did was call me. And she was like, You remember years ago when you did that?
And you said, "But look at now, I got a laser. There's always a solution."
I know. I was like, I know, Mom.
That is so true. I love us.
I'm
Hi,
like,
Gabby.
"Listen,
I know storytelling goes deeper, right? It's intentional, sword driven, and often rooted in compassion. What does it mean to you to lead with heart in journalism, especially when you're highlighting all these big, wonderful voices?
that's a really good question." I think I always try and ask myself, what can somebody learn from what this person has to say and from their story? And I try and think about that always. I also think something that is so important as an interviewer, as a writer, when you're asking somebody questions, and this might sound so like, duh, you're asking somebody a question, but being curious, like genuinely curious, because the odds are you are not the only person that is curious about that question. And I'm not talking about just being curious about like the chismosa type questions, which like are fun, but like genuinely curious about that person and their experience. I think that I always try and think of that first. Like even before I write an article, I have my notebook and I always write at the top, what's the story? Like, what am I trying to convey? What is the bottom line here? And obviously that will change once I have the interview with the person because you let it, as you guys know, interviewing people, you just let it flow and it goes where it goes. But I think just trying to remember, like, this isn't about you necessarily, it's about, well, it isn't about you. It's about the other person and who you're talking to and trying to connect genuinely with them, I think will allow you to have those words genuinely connect with other people. Because like, if you guys see it on TikTok, I feel like lately I keep seeing it where people are like, not one original experience, like perfect. And I'm like, that's actually true though. It's like so many of us think we're
Yeah.
like living these like original experiences and lives, and like, not to be like you're not special, but like sometimes you're just not. And like that's kind of amazing because it means that there's other people who understand exactly what you are going through and moving through. And so that's always kind of, I have that like baked into the way that I approach interviews.
Yeah, and we see that. We love that. That's why I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you to make sure because I was like, I see that within you, and it's that compassion that comes from who's sitting in front of you and truly digging deeper than just the basic questions that they can ask them at a red carpet or pretty much anywhere, right? That the fans want to hear. It's really like, who are you aside of an artist or as a mom or as a wife, right? Like you go really deep, and that's really powerful.
Thank you.
And we know you've interviewed so many powerful people. Was there a story or quote that completely shifted your perspective or that it reminded you of why you do what you do?
There wasn't a specific quote, but when I interviewed Coleman Domingo, that was like a game changer for the way that I approached a lot of things. And not even just in my career, but personally. I got to interview him, I think it was like in 2021 or 2022. Mm, For Architectural Digest, we covered his house here in LA. And that man, talk about a storyteller. Like he is incredible. And when I got there, he invited me into his home, which you don't really, it's not that common, especially if like you're just the writer of the story. And he invited me into his home, him and his husband, and we spent like 2 hours together in that house, walking me through, everything about it. And just the way that there is so much intentionality behind everything that he does is remarkable. And it could even be intentionality where it's like not even that deep, where it's like, I remember I asked him like, well, why that piece there? He's like, because I liked it. Because I liked it. And he said something along the lines of like, regardless of if somebody else tells me this is going to match or this is going to fit, if I like something, I will find a way to incorporate it into my home and it'll be part of this story. And I just remember walking away so taken aback by not only how genuine and warm and welcoming he was, but how absolutely himself he was and how that was reflected so unabashedly within his space. Like I just walked in there and I was like, oh, this is you. And I don't even know you like that, And so I remember just leaving that conversation, and that interview has stuck with me for so long. And there's like a line that I wrote in that interview that, or in the write up, that's something along the lines of like, code switching doesn't have a space inside Coleman's house. Like once you step into that home, like you get to be you, he is him, like, and we just get to be who we are authentically here, and judgment free zone, and like everybody's welcome. He's just like a dope ass human.
Love that.
Yeah, and that's beautiful to see it, right? Especially with somebody that you can look up to or follow,
Yeah.
right? Getting to know and that perspective and that experience, I'm sure was priceless.
Yeah, it was really cool. And he's Cuban, so I was like, perfect.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that. He's Cuban, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's wonderful. It goes in our blood. No, I love that because it's the storytelling of just being who we are, aside from when the cameras go off, really being true to ourselves. And I know we keep preaching about this to you, but we truly love how you bring gentleness into your work without compromising on impact. How do you take care of yourself emotionally when navigating heavy or vulnerable stories? Because I'm sure you've encountered some.
Mm. I mean, honestly, I wish I had a better answer for you because sometimes I feel like I am kind of running 100 miles an hour in terms of like, I'm very guilty of like constantly moving the goalpost in my life. Like, I think because I haven't accomplished certain things or like certain metrics, like in my brain, I haven't actually like done, like every time somebody reaches out to me to like do something like this, like I'm shocked 10 out of 10 times every single time because I think I like don't take a sec. And this isn't to be like, for me or like tell me how great I am. But for real, like I think I genuinely don't like give myself space to think about it too much because I'm like, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to keep going. But I think whenever I get met with stories that are really powerful, it inspires me to just keep going. And I think that's kind of like the best thing I can do in honor of that person, that story. Not that like that person gives a fuck what I'm now doing, but I genuinely think it's like to not let that piece of inspiration go. And like I said at the beginning, like I'm a very sentimental, like corny ass person deep down, which like if you know me in real life, like my friends make fun of me because they're like, you biggest rusty bitch face, biggest like I don't give a fuck, nothing. But when you like know me, like I am such a fucking crybaby. I'm so like I'm just like really sentimental about shit. And so I think just giving myself a moment to journal, like let it out. I love a gratitude list. I think gratitude is like one of the most basic yet overlooked things that we just don't do. And people might be like, I like, what is that going to do for me to genuinely sit in the morning and be like, I am grateful for, da da da, whatever. But you never know what's going to come out of you. And you also need to remember that, like, what you're grateful for, somebody literally does not have access to. Like, even this morning, the thing that I wrote down in my journal, I was like, I'm grateful for the fact that when something is wrong, my body tells me, where like if I eat something that's not good for me, my body like automatically reacts. Or if I get sick, like I automatically know, like I'm so grateful that my body reacts. And that's not something that so many people can say. So I think, yeah, to answer I don't know if that answers your question at all, but I think I just try and like make space for gratitude, remember why you do this in the first place, and also just like keep moving with that inspiration.
Yeah. No, and that was a good reminder because we forget to be grateful. And that does go a long way, because being grateful will open more opportunities for you and realizing like you pause for a second. I have so much going for me because knowing you're on the go, go, go. So standing those like that list and being and having that foundation in place really like makes a difference, right? Because you're like, oh my gosh, like look, I got approached. I'm in an interview. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Like just thank you for my health. Like things that we take for granted, but also it reminds us of everything we've done that we're so hard on ourselves.
Yeah. And it reminds me of, I don't know where this quote originated, but the idea that, you're currently living in one of your answered prayers. Like I've been trying to think about that a lot lately because in the moments that I'm really hard on myself, like if I like listen, for Irregardless, this is a great example. Like it is a me, myself, and I situation in terms of like, of course I have my production team that I work with like on shoot days and things like that. But in terms of like getting talent booked and, all the logistics and all of that stuff, like that is high. So on the days where, I'm sending a million pitch emails to people's publicists or I'm sending DMs or, whatever, and I'm getting like no fucking answer, I try and just remind myself, like, even the fact that you have this person's email, even the fact that you are sitting here spending hours of your day doing outreach for your show is something that you prayed about and dreamed about. So I try and bring myself not to like constantly, because listen, I think we need to give each other ourselves grace to be annoyed, to be frustrated, to do all of that shit. Like I'm not saying like you need to constantly live in the silver linings, but I am a big silver linings person where like I'm like, okay, what is the lesson here? What's the positive out of this in like a non-toxic positive way, Because again, I think you gotta let yourself be annoyed. But yeah, I just try and think about that a lot.
Love that. And you said that you're always like on the go go. Do you ever pause and look at what you've built so far?
Recently I have. I think the Becky G thing was like a really big deal. Not just because it was Becky, but also, Create and Cultivate, which is where I got to interview her, has been, I mean, like on my bucket list of like festival summits to speak at, to just be on a stage at. And Becky, of course, has also been a bucket list person for me. So being able to kind of like have those two meet and have it be something that I was approached about. Like I didn't know that my name was even in a list until I got the call being like, do you want to do this? And I was like, what? So having that space to like acknowledge like you're being talked about in rooms that you don't even know exist was big for me. And I let myself really celebrate that and have the moment where I was like, bitch, like this is a big fucking deal. And like
You did
all of
that.
the things, like it's been such a long game and like so many, like there was just so much that led up to that moment happening that, years and years ago, like I'm not a very patient person. Like I think a lot of us, like we just like want like instant gratification. And so reminding myself that the seeds that I started planting years and years ago led me to such a great moment. Like I just gotta keep planting and then watering those seeds.
Well, congratulations. That is
Thank
huge.
you. Thank you.
And I ask that because we often, if we're like on that hustle mode, sometimes we forget to take a step back and look at what we've built, kind of like look back and see, oh my God, look at all I've built, right? And that's just like us humans, right? Especially we're on that go, go, go. We don't often stop and realize, wait, like look at what I've built. So
Yeah.
I just wanted, to point that out.
Thank you. Well, there's this book called The Psychology of Money, and I think it's like incredible book. You read it? It's so
I've read
good.
it. We have it here. I
It's
love
so
it.
good. There's so many lessons in it, and it's one of the books that I tell like everybody to read. And there's something in there where he talks about moving the goalpost, which is something that I brought up earlier that I do a lot. And he talks about, making sure that you're not guilty of constantly moving the goalpost and having an understanding for yourself of when enough is actually enough. And he's talking about it in terms of money, which is really important, but it can be, that can be applied to any area of your life. One thing that I'm really working on right now is allowing myself the moment to actually be like, you're allowed to celebrate. And Becky and I actually talked about this on stage because I asked her, I was like, how the fuck do you do it? Like, how do you, you know, create times and space to actually celebrate not just the big wins, but also the small ones? Because I don't want to wake up like how I felt waking up in January of 2024, being like, what the fuck even happened last year? Like, what did I even do? Like, I missed all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to like that is a terrifying feeling to me of being like I'm just like missing my life. Like even though I'm physically there, like my brain is not. I'm not present at all. And so that book really helped me like kind of as like a wake up call to be like you need to like be here now and have an understanding of what is enough and not in a sense where you limit what you are dreaming to and aspiring towards, but just not losing sight of the fact that this goal that now seems trivial was a goal for you at one point. So like you achieving it is no longer, like we can be like, oh, well, like if I achieved it, like clearly it wasn't that hard or like clearly it wasn't that big of a deal because I was able to get it done. But you have to remember that that was a goal that you wrote down that you wanted to accomplish. And it was a big fucking deal to you at the time. So remember to celebrate that. Like that present you needs to also celebrate that for current you and past you as well.
Yeah.
We all need that reminder. We all do.
Yeah. And what is one taboo that you're still trying to break?
I mean, I think it's what we were kind of talking about with the whole nipple piercing thing. I really do have this complex that I'm really trying to get over of like being this like little girl that like doesn't know how to make her own choices and like doesn't know how to, live in, how do I say this? Like in the duality of it all. Like I keep saying that people are like, okay, bitch, like find a new word. But like it really is like how I feel. Like I remember growing up feeling like, we were talking about earlier, like the attention whore thing. Also, I'm sorry, I've been cursing like a lot on this. I hope that's okay. Like finally, it's like it all sounds so silly coming out of my mouth, but it really was that like I'm still trying to work through the like I can have that side of myself that like loves to go out and dance and have that like joy and lightness of our culture, but then also have the like boss bitch like she gets shit done like she's in her power blazer, which is the reality of so many of us. And so I think that's like the tricky thing is like I know that it exists. Obviously, like I know that that's the reality, but for some reason I'm still unpacking a lot of the shit that I grew up around in terms of thinking that like within myself all of that has legitimacy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's a reminder we need too, because I feel like a Hispanic or Latinas, we might not talk about it, but we're all thinking about it. Or we got raised, or we are currently living, right? Like that. And it's just crazy to me, right? Like when you meet another Latina or somebody from Miami or like the whole accent, I get that all the time. And I'm like, I don't have an accent. Like, what are you referring to? What's your accent from? I'm like, So it's just what we have to live with and at a very young age. So it feels good to know we're not alone.
Yeah, and it's conditioning too of how we grew up. Like you said, like,
Yeah.
you're doing something and someone telling you, oh, like you're doing too much, right? Like Jeanette said earlier, I grew up with a mother telling me all the time, calladita te ves mejor, right?
Mhm.
And then I go into corporate America and I'm in these meetings with all these people and I have so much to say, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm not gonna say anything because dare I say something? Like, what are they gonna think? Like, first of all, who is she? Like the only Latina in the room. I was like, no, I'm not gonna say anything. And then I heard the voice of my mother in the back of my mind, like, no, 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 calladita te ve mejor. So it's this conditioning that we have to break free from, right? And we just have to, like you said earlier, take up space, take up all the space because it's needed. And I feel like we're living in such a time for Latinos that we have to show up and take up space.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Like art that's the thing. Like I love like I just don't even know how to say it. Like I fucking love being Latina. Like I am so glad every day that I was born Latina. Like there's so I'm like pobrecitos for the ones that don't understand. Like there's just so much like beauty and like fun and joy in our culture and in our people. And it just makes me sad that like, we have to repress or we've been expected to repress so much of that or to fit into whatever like cultural standards are, cultural norms are, or, repress a part of myself and or part of our be seen as professional or, anything like that. Like it just breaks my heart. And I just hope that that's like one of the things that I'm so glad that, we're finally like, that's what you guys are doing too, right? Is like sharing these stories and creating space for these conversations. And, hopefully it's like when we're all gone, this isn't even a conversation anymore. It's just like people get to just be.
Yeah, and we posted that recently, I think like a month ago, where we posted like in every lifetime, I want to be Latina. That's how,
Like, girl,
Yes.
yeah, it's like in every lifetime, please, Diosito, I want to come back as a Latina again.
every time, like 10 out of 10 times, please. Like, please.
Yes, and before we dive into the fun, one last question because I am a New Yorker. When you were in New York, I think in one of your recent newsletters, you wrote,
God.
I know you were in New York and it was cold and anxious, which is again the perfect way to describe New York. But I want to hear from you. What was it that got you anxious about New York?
I mean, I feel like I need to defend myself. I love New York. I love New York. I always wanted to live in New York when I was growing. Like, I just thought it was like the coolest place ever. I think when I got to New York, I was 22. I had lived there throughout the summers of college because I was interning, but I was there for like 2.5, 3 months, something like that. So I think that helped because then when I moved there, it wasn't as big as a shock. But I think honestly, it was just like the go 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 of it all. Like growing up in Miami, like it's a major city, but it's like not like it's very suburban. You get to pick and choose when you're surrounded by a lot of people. I am an overstimulated girly over here. So I think it was that where it was like I lived in a very I mean, all of New York is fucking densely populated, but it was like, I was like, the train that I was like getting on was so fucking intense every morning. And then I worked at the World Trade Center. So I was getting off in the subway station in the Oculus, which has like the trains coming in from like Jersey and Connecticut and like everywhere. So it was just like, you know, immediate 8 a.m. Like you're just like poof, with like energy
And
and
if you
like,
don't walk at a certain pace,
no, girl, I was sprinting.
it's
I was
over.
sprinting through those fucking streets. I learned so fast. Oh my God.
Other stories all the time.
No, I'd rather die. I'd rather die than someone telling me to like get the fuck out of the way. I'd like, let me just go into a puddle. Like you're correct. So I would run through those freaking streets. But yeah, like I think it was just that. And then also just like I think the energy of working in the World Trade Center, I was like, this is a weird vibe and it's like intense and also just like my job, like I was an assistant, which like I again like I love my old boss, but it's you're when you're somebody's assistant, like there is a different type of anxiety to it because you like you're reporting, especially to the editor in chief, like you're reporting to like everybody's boss, like that is your direct boss. And I was, 22 and, wanted to do a good job. And like the stakes in my brain were really high. And I think it was that. It was like not feeling like could have a moment of peace. And I think also, to be fair, I was so young that I had this like complejo that like I always had to like be doing something. Like I felt like if I was on by myself in my apartment on a Sunday, I was like, you're missing out on this or you're missing out on that. Or like you could like you live in New York, like you could be doing so many amazing things. Like why the fuck are you sitting home? So I wouldn't kind of give myself a break. I think if I lived there now, like, which not for nothing, but like my boyfriend and I kind of have the itch where we're like, do we do it? Like he's from LA, so I'm like, do we do it? And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do it full time. I'm like, maybe like when it's like, you know, we're able to do like both, like a bi-coastal moment, I would do it. But who knows when that'll happen. But now, like, I get excited to go back to. I love going back to New York. I love getting to visit my friends there. I think because I have like the reprieve, but I will say that if I moved there now, I think my experience would be much more positive than when I was just so young and I had like so much FOMO and I was like, I need to be doing da 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 da. You know, it was just like a lot, but like love
No,
it.
yeah, no, that rush, like that rush hour in the morning, I like born and raised, went to college there.
Yeah.
I went to Baruch to, Lexington Avenue. That is no joke. If you are not walking at their pace, I'm like, I
Yeah.
feel sorry for you.
It's like my first internship when I lived there. I was living in an apartment in Murray Hill, which is like, tell me an intern that's not, that's like goes to New York and like they're living in Murray Hill. And my subway station was Grand Central Station. And I was like, I'm going to die. Like, I'm going to die. It was like so intense. I was like, this is a lot, but I love it. It's a very special city, and like I'm so grateful that I was able to do that because that is not a privilege that a lot of people have to be able to go live in a different state that you're not from in the summers, take an internship, do the whole thing. Like it, I'm so blessed that I was able to do that.
And I love to hear those stories because I go as a tourist. I've never lived in New York. So when I hear stories like yours, I'm just like, okay, never mind. I'll stay as a tourist. I'm not moving. Hear that.
It's a great city though.
No, yeah, it is. Jeanette is coming in September, so I can't wait to show her around.
Oh, it's gonna be great. It'll be great.
Yeah, all right. Now let's get into a little bit of fun, some lightning rounds. So fill in the blank. Being a Latina storyteller means
Being a Latina storyteller means doing the things that your ancestors wish that they were able to do.
Oof, that's powerful. A dream guest you still want to interview.
I mean, like, who's not gonna say Bad Bunny? Like, who's not gonna say Bad Bunny right now? But also, we were talking about her earlier, Oprah, big one.
Really,
yes,
really good one.
those are two good ones. What's one non-negotiable in your self-care routine?
Washing my face before I go to sleep, like doing my skincare before bed.
Me
Yeah.
too. I'm like, that can be aged. That's just something that feels so good, right? Like, how do
Mhm.
people sleep with makeup on or like a
Yeah,
dirty face or, ugh.
but it's also like a silent. Like I do it. I don't like listen to music. I'm not listening to a podcast. Like I do a lot of. Like I said, I'm an overstimulated girl. Like I like doing stuff in silence, at least like one thing throughout the day, and that's usually the thing where it's like there's no other fucking noise going around, and I'm just like focused.
Powerful. I love it. That's a good self care. All right, let's step into our favorite role, la tía chismosa. You know, the one que siempre está diciendo, y eso de entrevistar artista paga bien, y tú vas a seguir con eso de los medios. But here you are, thriving, building your own platform, and rewriting the script. If that tía was watching you now, what do you think she'll say?
She'd be really proud of me. Like I think she'd be like, I always hear in my head, "Ay, Gabriela." Like it's just always like, "Ay, Gabriela." There she goes again. But I think that she'd be really. I think she'd be like, "Dale duro, like do it. Have fucking fun. Like show them, just show them where you get that fucking attitude from. Do it."
I love it. And of course, before we let you go, can you tell our listeners where they can find you? And if you have any exciting events or projects coming up, where can they look out for that?
Yeah, I mean, you can always find me on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube across all those platforms. It's at Gabby Ulloa underscore GABYULLOA underscore. Same thing with Irregardless across all platforms. It's at Irregardless Media. And then my Substack also, which is just gabrielaulloa.substack.com. Everything is always linked in my link in bio on my Instagram and stuff. But that's usually, I feel like Instagram is the place where I'm always posting the most in real time.
Perfect. And we'll make sure to also include it on the show notes.
Thank you.
Gabby, thank you for leading with purpose, compassion, and cultura. You are proof that we don't need permission to be powerful. We just need the courage to show up as we are. Thank you again for being here with us.
Thank you guys so much. This was so fun. I love what you guys are doing, and I'm really honored that you asked me to be here today.
Thank you
So
Of
so
thank
much.
you.
course, yes. And thank you for reminding us that storytelling is not just a career, it's soul work. And of course, to our taboo breakers, this is your reminder to take up space, lead with heart, and trust your voice. No one else needs to validate it. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. Y como siempre, chicas, we'll see you next time on Taboo Talk Latina Edition, where we keep breaking cycles, breaking silence, and breaking taboos.